Welcome, Discover with Lucy. And I have an exciting podcast. I know I've been doing a lot of nonprofits, which this actually lands in that category as well, and my passion as well. And a lot of this podcast has to do with that. We've been doing a lot of events, a lot of stuff, a lot of Ferrande stuff going on. But I want to get back into what a huge passion of mine is, and it's because of where my family comes from. And I met this guest. We're going to use celebrity lately, celebrity judges for the Great Alaska Talent Competition. And him and I sat next to each other. And as I got to know his story more, I knew he had to be on Discover with Lucy. Junior, welcome to the iHeart Radio podcast.
Thank you, Lucy. It's a privilege and honor to be able to be on here, and it's great meeting you in the celebrity thing that we just did this past weekend, but it's great to be here and talk.
Yeah. So Junior is your name. That's people call you Junior, but I want to say your full name.
Well, if you know Samoan names, we got a lot of vowels. So.
Yeah. That's so true. Can I buy a vowel?
Yeah, right. So my first name is Uluao. And that's why I go by Junior. So
okay. How do you pronounce it?
So the way you pronounce it is Uluao.
Uluao.
Junior, and then Aumavae. So I'm named after my father.
Aumavae.
Yeah.
Okay, I was writing it down here after Junior. I was trying to figure out how to say your last name. I was like, nope, I'm going to leave that one to him.
No problem.
And I know the whole night everybody kept saying that, so we'll just call you Junior. Welcome into the studio. You have such a full story that I'm really excited to dig into. It starts with NFL player, entrepreneurship, former government executive, nonprofit founder. You're my rival, Western Washington University, where I went to Eastern Washington University, and an MSU athlete, plus probably tons more. And I want to learn about it with listeners here on the iHeart Radio app. And we have listeners all over the world. And so it's going to be really exciting. So let's start with the very beginning. You walked into the studio with a beautiful gift, and it is from where you're born, and it's handmade. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the beginning of Junior's life.
Yeah, so, that gift is actually, it's a fan. So it's called Fili in our language. It's handmade back there in Samoa in my family. And I just recently went back last fall. And so I was born in Samoa, so I was 3 years old when we left.
Oh, wow.
So going back to Samoa was kind of like a new experience for me because I really didn't grow up on the island. Actually, I was just growing up on the States. Well, that fan was given to me by family members. Other, objects were given to me, too, as memories. And so part of our culture, when we are thankful or meeting individuals or different families, we give a gift. And that's basically what it is from my family to you for having me on this show, is giving you a gift to show our appreciation for just having me on here.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to cherish it. It's going on the wall of fame. If you've seen my studio, you know that I've had amazing guests, and I kind of like little something to remind me of my time with them. And this is a lot something. And
I'm not sure how much you're going to use it in Alaska. I don't know how hot it's going to get for you, but
I wish we could.
I mean, you got to have fan cool you down in Alaska. I don't know how much you can use it, but it'd be great to just have around, and we're just very grateful.
Well, thank you very much. All right, let's start out with, so you're born in Samoa, but where you left at 3 years old, where did you go?
Yeah, so I'm just going to rewind.
I know. You'll even learn stuff about yourself when we talk. When I talk to entrepreneurs and people that have such a full life, they forget a lot of what got them to where they are. That's why I'm really excited about this. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. So for the listeners that are listening, kind of give you kind of like a background. I come from a family of 10 sisters.
Wow.
And 2 brothers. And so
the girl vibe was high.
Right. Definitely outnumbered. But I'm the oldest son. So when my dad had 6 girls, he was like, we got to have a son. We got to have one. And finally, boom, Junior came. And then he was like, let's get another one. Then my brother Keith came.
Oh, cool.
And he's like, all right, we got 6 girls, 2 boys. We need more boys. Well, then he had 4 more girls. And then he had my youngest brother, who was the baby of the family, Benjamin. So when I was born in American Samoa, my dad at the time and my mother at the time, they were in a kind of a sticky position because my father had some type of health issues. And his sister actually lived in Washington. So that's kind of like the Washington
Washington
connection.
State?
Yeah, Washington State.
Okay.
So she stayed in Seattle. And my father had issues with his health, and on the island, I kind of saw this in first person when I went back in October. There's just a lot of improvement that need to be made with the infrastructure, with health, buildings, that kind of stuff. Well, imagine it back then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking about a place that doesn't have street lights, street signs.
Wow.
It actually took me about 2 weeks to actually find a gym there.
2 weeks?
Yeah, and this was last October I was out there.
Oh, wow.
So imagine back then.
Oh, wow.
So my father moved out to Seattle because his sister was like, hey, we got doctors in the United States that are the best of the world. Well, he ended up moving out there to be able to kind of take care of his health, and then also give opportunity to be able to get better in his health. And that's how we ended out in Washington State. From there, things really kind of took off for my parents. And that's really kind of like some of my story as well that happened out in Washington State. When I was young, I think it was like 4 or 5 years old, in Washington State, I had an experience which I call a miracle. Oh. And when I was a kid, I actually had pneumonia and actually passed away from pneumonia. And so as a kid, when I passed away from pneumonia, my mom, so we go to church. Yeah. And as a kid, my mom, every time it's my birthday, which is April 29, she would go up in front of the church and tell this story. So this is how I know the story, because my mom would tell the story.
Yeah.
Well, she would tell a story about when I was a kid that I passed away from pneumonia, and that God had a purpose for me because I did pass away, and the way I came back to life was a miracle.
Wow.
And so when so I'm going to explain what happened with the having pneumonia and dying and going to the hospital. So at that time we had family over, and you imagine all these kids running around. Well, my uncle at the time was there with his family as well. And he noticed that I was kind of like not moving, that kind of stuff. And he told my parents, just like, hey, look, Junior's not moving. What's going on? He's pale, different color. So then he went over to check my pulse, and he told my mom, he's like, hey, he doesn't have a pulse. So they freaked out. My mom picked me up and took me up the stairs. I guess she dropped me down the stairs. And I guess that's how they know I was dead, because I didn't react.
Oh my God.
Maybe that's why I'm so good at football, because,
Oh my gosh. Only funny way long later, okay?
Yeah, right? So they ended up rushing me to the hospital. When they rushed me to the hospital, they did pronounce me dead. So I was actually flatlined.
Wow.
And
how long has this been for?
Oh, you got to imagine, it probably takes about 15 minutes to get to the hospital.
Yeah.
And about 10 minutes to set up all the things they need to get me on. So you're looking at probably like 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, we had our church, we had family members present at the hospital. When they pronounced me dead, they were like talking to my dad. It was like, hey, look, we've done everything we could to bring Junior back. Well, my father was like, well, can we pray? Can we have the pastors and elders pray for my son before you guys try again? And the doctor agreed. And so they did. So they prayed for my dead body, basically. And the pastor, the elders were there, and they all prayed. And after they prayed, they asked the doctor to try one more time. So they did.
Oh my God, I have like chills. I'm like freaking out over here.
Right? And so like they did. After they prayed, they brought me back to life.
Are you serious? I've read a book, and there are several. So when you were dead, do you remember anything?
The only thing I remember, one, is my mom telling me the story.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. And then two, I just remember waking up and seeing a lot of people around me cheering.
Wow.
I had no clue why. I just remember waking up and seeing people cheering. And then, when I got older, I started connecting dots. I'm like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
There's something to this, and I think there's a God factor to it.
Yeah.
Actually, I know there is.
Yeah.
Because of the journey that I've been on. When you talk about the different steps, being able to go to the NFL, to be able to serve as the highest Samoan executive in Alaska's history, those are things that you just can't plan out on your own. There's definitely got to be a higher power to be able to kind of put a guide through it. So,
well, you having a purpose is exactly what God.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had just lost my father, and I always say, he was only 64, and I equate it to he did his job on Earth. Like, that's what we're here for, So it's absolutely amazing that you got to come back, really have the purpose, and you're executing it. You're not sitting back and hanging out. You're executing quite a few things.
Yeah, I think that's where I get a lot of my drive, a lot of my commitment, and a lot of my faith is actually from my father. As I got older, I started to realize that you had to be very committed to that type of process of praying and believing in something to be able for a miracle to happen. And that's exactly what my dad did.
Wow.
He brought the church together. He put his faith in Christ and believed in a higher power to be able to get his son, his oldest son that he's been trying forever.
Oh my gosh,
he
wasn't losing you. There was no way.
He had 6 girls, and all of a sudden he needed his oldest son to come back. Well, he put his belief in the higher power, and that's exactly what happened. And, that really kind of, as I got older, as a man, as a professional, that's really kind of what I modeled, is what my father put in place at a young age to really kind of bring me back. And that's how I was able to be successful, doing exactly what he did, and really kind of believing in Christ's power to be able to kind of do the things in order for me to be where I need to be.
Wow, absolutely incredible. Well, I'm glad you're still here. So you grew up over on the west side of Washington?
Yeah, so we lived over there where White Center is. You know where White Center is? So we lived in Kent. You know where Kent is?
Yeah.
So we lived in Kent, and we lived there for a little bit. And
I went to radio school in Tacoma.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Lakewood.
What are we doing up in Alaska?
I don't know why. I know why. I graduated and the economy crashed, and there was no chance for me to get a job there in radio.
Well, that's America. America is the greatest country. I will always say that America is the greatest country in the world, and to be able to kind of get high and then be at a low point, you're able to come back from those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that's why we live in such a great country, because you're able to do those kind of things in America.
That's so true. That's a great way to put it. We're rivals. You went to Western Washington University.
I wouldn't say that. We're kind of like the little brother of Eastern. You guys have the big bucks.
We have WSU,
you guys got the big money over there. Western, we're kind of like the little brother of Eastern. But, when I went to Western Washington University at that time, I didn't know, the politics of different colleges and that kind of stuff, which now I kind of look at it now, it's like, whoa, I didn't see that when I was attending the school.
Yeah.
But, it was a great experience to be able to go to Western Washington University. Unfortunately, they cut the football program there when I was there.
Really?
So, like I said, we're the little brother of Eastern.
Yeah.
So we really are the little brother of Eastern, because you guys,
we got the stadium after I graduated. So we had our, the red.
Yeah.
That was all after I graduated. We had the old stadium where it was the broken down stadium, and now Eastern Washington University Stadium is absolutely insane.
Well, while you guys were planning for a new stadium, they were planning to cut us. So.
Oh, God. Maybe your money went to us. What got you into football?
Yeah, so that was actually a miracle in itself, too. Football, I didn't play sports. So I know you got a kid that's playing sports. Sports knowledge. I didn't do that. I didn't get introduced to sports until I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
And it was by accident.
Wow.
So it was by accident that I was introduced to sports. I would say I lived here in Anchorage. We lived in Mountain View, right across from the Boys and Girls Club on next to the Mountain View Elementary.
Yeah.
And so...
And for our listeners on the iHeart Radio app listening right now, Mountain View is actually the most diverse community in the U.S. That is an actual thing where you're talking about right now.
Yeah, so those that are listening, Mountain View is a wonderful place. It's got a very diverse community, but it's also seen as a community that is kind of like a lower income. And, for my family... family 15 at the time, we lived in Mountain View.
Oh, yeah, you have to. If there was 15 in my family, I'd be there right now, too.
So there's 15 of us, and, I'm not a small guy, my sisters aren't small either, so we, my parents had to get very, they did a lot of stuff to be able to provide for my family. Well, here's the thing, even though we didn't have much, my family, we didn't have much money, we drove, a very beat up station wagon. I'm not sure if you remember station wagons are.
Oh yeah.
So station wagons. We had a bright yellow station wagon.
They saw you coming.
So they saw us coming. The back of the station wagon is very long. And so there's 15 of us, so we had to lay down in the back,
like stacked like a sandwich. Back there.
Right. So just imagine that you got 15 people. We were stacked in the station wagon. And, we had one person sitting next to mom and pops yelling, police!
Oh, yeah. Duck!
So we'd sit there and we'd be like, just holding our breath, even though we couldn't see the police. So we were just sitting back there. So all those memories that I have of my family is just my parents did a great job making sure we didn't feel like we didn't have anything. And, that's really kind of like the model that I use when I interact or when I have like a business partnership or family partnership, friendship, is that, really trying to hide those type of things. But they did a great job in doing that for us as kids. We really didn't have much, but we didn't feel like it.
Yeah. That's awesome. My dad tells a story about going into the grocery store. We didn't have much either. And going into the grocery store with $10 to feed. We only had a family of 5, so I don't have that kind of story. But he'd say, what can I make for $10, And that's how it was back then, when speaking of Mountain View, did you know Jamar Hill?
So I did interact with him when I was in government.
Oh, okay.
I think he's working on a facility out in Mountain View to
really
kind of help the Boys and Girls Club. And from what I hear and interacting with the short interaction that I had with him, it seems like he's got a great thing going for that community. And,
amazing, yeah.
So that's my short interaction with him. So.
Yeah, he was on the podcast, so I just had to ask you if you guys. I didn't know the age, if there was an age gap there, but I think we're all around the same age. So I had to ask if you knew, because he was on the baseball end. He was on the junior league of the New York Yankees.
Oh, nice!
And so I had to have him on the podcast for his exactly the same, but you're on the NFL side. And so and we'll get into the government stuff here in a minute. So you got introduced to football at a very older age. I mean, my kids started hockey at 3.5, Junior.
Wow, how did that happen?
I come from a hockey family.
So what do? You just throw skates on kids who are 3 years old and you tell them to go out there and skate?
Look at the Diamond Center. The iHeart radio studio is in the Diamond Center, and down below is an ice rink. Go down there at night and you'll see all these little kids falling all over. It's the cutest thing ever.
Wow.
And we had to bribe them back then with Mrs. Fields cookies if they did good and didn't cry the whole time. But you'll know if your kid likes hockey or not if they're going to keep those skates on. And we have 6 grandsons, and 4 are hockey players. Yeah, we're in the middle of state right now, so state tournaments. Yeah, it's just insane now.
I give you the credit because playing sports in college and actually in high school too, the locker room of the hockey players were next to us, and it was probably the most ranked that I've ever smelled.
Well, then my house,
oh my goodness, that's why I
my
give you credit.
garage, my car. So I grew up back in the 80s and 90s where there was not female hockey, and so I was just like the rink rat, and I was like, my kids will never play hockey. I'm not doing this. It takes up all of your money. It's so expensive. And here I am with 2 hockey players. I have a 14U hockey player and a 10U hockey player, about to be a 12U hockey player. So
and a strong mom.
Yeah.
That's credit to strong
got
mom.
Strong's no senses. Yeah. I just am used to it now. Isn't that disgusting? All right, let's get back to you in football. So sophomore year, how did you get introduced?
So actually, like I mentioned, I went to these schools that were connected to Mountain View. So I went to Clark Middle School. There, I was introduced to, friends. And at that time, my home situation was starting to get a little worse. And I think that's where I ran into trouble. What I mean by a little worse, things were happening. We had 10 girls in the house. Those girls were starting to get in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I don't even know what that looks like. I'm the only girl. There's all boys.
And, there were some problems running in the home. Well, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to seeing, mom, dad fighting with the sisters or having to leave home to go retrieve one of the sisters that ran away or got into, partying. And I wasn't used to that as a kid growing up. So for me, I was like, dang, I'm kind of missing that type of family feeling. So I started putting that energy in school with people with the wrong crowd. basically.
Yeah.
And that's where I was kind of seeking that family dynamic. Well, it happened to be the wrong crowd. Ended up getting in trouble a lot in middle school. Ended up getting suspended. Went to high school, same exact thing. Got caught cheating on my grades.
No.
Getting in fights. Getting all those kind of things in high school.
Who would fight you?
Well, that's the thing. Is like.
You're not the smallest guy. I would never.
Believe it or not, I wasn't the biggest guy either.
Really? Where'd you
Yeah.
go to high school?
I went to East High.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot believe.
I went to West High too, so I went to both
I went
of
to
those.
West High.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up graduating from So High, but yeah, I went to West High also. So you started hanging out with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Got involved with gangs. Really kind of. It was the wrong crowd. I was in the wrong direction. And at East High School, it was, very bad to where, I got in a fight. And when I went to the school principal at that time, my mom was sitting in the office already with my sister Helen. My sister Helen, she's the third oldest, I believe she is. So she's the third oldest, but she's like the tomboy of the family. But at that time, she had 2 kids. Anyway, so she's like very, well put together. And she's sitting there with my mom. And my mom's like, all right, you need to leave Anchorage and you need to go out to the Valley. So I don't know if your viewers know what the Valley is, but it's a total difference between the Valley and, let's say, Mount View.
Talking about the Matsu Valley, you can Google that if you don't know what we're talking about.
If you want to compare
small.
It's small, but also it's not very diverse. So
it's not at all, actually.
So I think, so when I got kicked out of the schools at East High, I had to go to the Valley, which is Palmer High School. And I think I was the only Samoan kid at the 3 high schools. So there's the Palmer High School, the Colony High School, and Wasilla High School. I was pretty confident I was the only Samoan out there. And when I arrived to the Palmer High School, I was like, I had red jeans. I had a Redskins jacket. That's the NFL team.
Yeah.
Which they're called Commanders now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But
yeah, I forgot about that.
And I had a red LA hat. So obviously I was kind of showing my affiliation with the Blood Gang and that kind of stuff. So when I arrived there, everybody was wearing Doc Martens.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was wearing North Face. Everybody was wearing these button-up t-shirts. I was like, all right, this is...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know. Yeah, you know. So, it was a culture shock for me to really kind of see the difference. But really, when I got out there, I was really pissed off at my parents. I was pissed off at my sister because, I'm out there in the Valley. How would they do this to a teenager who knows everything in the world?
Because you're, sophomore still?
Yeah, sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And so...
That is when you know everything.
Yeah, right? So, I was kind of thinking in my head, like, my mom is the worst person in the world. My sister, I can't believe she betrayed me, those kind of things. Well, when I got out there, my sister put me to work. She had a huge yard. It took me about 6 hours to mow. Yeah,
because in the Valley, you have a lot of land.
Yeah, a lot of land. And so I would do that throughout the whole spring, and then I would do that, when it got time to mow. And then in the summertime, it got even worse because the grass would grow back faster. So I would do it more often. Well, one of these times that I was mowing the grass, my sister came home early from work and was like, "Hey, you're not doing anything productive. Go find something to do." Because I was just chilling on the chair, and then my sister, she's like, "Go for a walk." I'm like, "Go for a walk where? In the Valley?" Like,
I was gonna say, where you going?
So, are you familiar with the Valley and that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, back then it was a lot different than it is now. They've really built out the Valley now, but back then they didn't have anything in the Valley.
So we lived behind the high school, and at that time the high school didn't have like a little way to get down there. They didn't have like kind of like a driveway. It was just woods, and that kind of stuff with kind of like a sidewalk. Anyway, so I ended up taking a walk, and when I took a walk, I was walking down that walkway towards the high school. And so, I was walking through the high school, I started hearing whistles, I started hearing noises. And that's where I was walking through the woods. And when I walked through the woods, it started getting louder and those kind of things. I hear people yelling and screaming. I get out, and the football coach and the football team looked and saw this big Samoan kid out of the woods. Like,
who are you?
They saw
It was like Field of Dreams.
Yeah, they were like, who the heck? Like, so just came out of the woods. And then that's how the football story started. Is, when I came out of the woods, the coach came up to me, was like, hey, you want to play some ball? Like, you look like you'd be interested. I was like, I don't even know what football is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and at the time I was like, I don't even know if I could play it too, because I have to babysit my two my nephews. Because my sister worked at Walmart, and so she worked night shift. She was like stocking and that kind of stuff. And her husband was on the boat, worked on the boat in Lucia Chains. He's gone for like 4 or 6 months and that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So, I had to be the babysitter when I got back from school. So I told him, I was like, I don't even know if I can play sports because my sister had to watch her 2 kids. Well, then that coach ended up talking to my sister. And my sister was like, heck no. Like, this guy doesn't deserve any of that kind of stuff. And my coach is like, well, he's got potential and it'll be good for him.
It gives values, structure. I mean, sportsmanship.
Well, you're a sports mom.
Yeah, I know. This is why
you see a difference in your kids,
and
right?
this is why I pay for it. This is exactly why I pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, he convinced her that if she would allow me to go to football practice, his coaching staff, the football aides, and the football team would babysit my nephews during football practice. They would feed them. They would make sure they take their naps during football practice.
Oh, my gosh.
And made sure that they would watch the kids if she allowed me to go and practice.
What did she say?
Well, I ended up playing football, right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, like I said, like the whole story, the way everything worked out, this is the God factor. Like,
yeah.
At that time, they gave me a number 71, which is my football number that I had in high school, right? So I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. So 2 years ago, one of those boys that was being babysitted by the football team got drafted.
Shut up.
By the Ravens.
Are you serious?
They gave him number 71.
Oh, my gosh. Isn't that? I have chills. Oh my God. That's where you can't deny anything. That is wild.
So the Baltimore Ravens ended up drafting my nephew, one of the nephews that was being watched by
That's so crazy.
By the football team. He was a little baby. I mean, just walking around. The girls were holding his hands.
Yeah.
And, he was sleeping on the pads. He got drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and they gave him number 71, which is the number that I was in high school they gave me. And so he was watching me.
Wild. Drafted by the Ravens. And gets number 71.
Here's another thing.
My arms are I have many goosebumps.
So the same thing, like, he was drafted, they gave him number 71. It was on my birthday, April 29.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. So you played for Dallas.
I had a short stint in the NFL. So for the Cowboys, the New York Jets, I tried out for the Buccaneers, the Green Bay Packers, the Redskins. I also played in different leagues as well, which is kind of like the arena football leagues, the indoor football leagues, the FXFL. So I know the good, like the very high level of talent, and then the lower level organizations as far as like outside of the NFL. So I know the good and bad of both sides.
Right.
To where, you're getting checks that are thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, I also got checks that were worth $50.
Oh, wow.
Playing against guys who were NFL talent.
Right.
They just didn't have the platform kind of like the NFL, but they would try to get back like I did.
Yeah.
And so that, taught me a lot of lessons as well, as you can tell, in the entrepreneurship, in the leadership, all those kind of things kind of prepare me for life post-football.
Right.
Was going through those experiences. But, so I ended up playing some pro sports. After playing some college sports, after Western cut their football program.
Boo.
Right?
That's lame.
So I ended up going to Minnesota State University. They had a great coach there, Coach Hoffner. They were actually, when Western cut their football program, one of my good buddies, his name is Don Thomas, he was actually getting recruited by Minnesota State Mankato, which is another Division II school. They were looking at his film, and they saw me on his film. So they saw me on his film.
Yeah.
And they told him, he's like, hey, who is this number 71? It's like, oh, that's my good friend Junior. Like, bring him on the recruiting trip.
Wow.
So my friend told me, and I was like, well, okay, yeah, I'll go check it out. You know, you're my good buddy, and, you know, we don't have a home now to play football. And this was my last year of playing football, so it was my senior year. Well, I ended up going out there to Mankato with him, and they put us through football drills and those kind of things. And this is what sealed the deal. He had one of his coaches hold the bag. Let me just rewind with. So before they cut the football program, I had season-ending injuries. So I have a total of 7 injuries.
Oh, wow.
That required major surgeries. And one of them is Tommy John surgery in my left elbow, which is for baseball throwers. So when they throw and they twist their elbow here, it tears all ligaments in their elbow.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had that in a football injury in my left elbow. Happened during the game, then I ended up playing after 4 games. So, like, I came back with it.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, and then I tore all the ligaments in my left ankle. And that's where it kind of called quits. So it took me a year to recover. When I came back, that's where they cut the football program.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so it was like...
oh, what a horrible... Oh, God.
Yeah. So you can kind of anticipate, you know, coming back, and then they're all like, hey, we'll cut the football program. And you're like, okay, what now, God?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, what now? You know, I'm trusting you. Well, guess the coach ended up seeing my friend's tape and saw me on there.
That's wild.
What are the odds of that happening?
0 to none. That's what I was literally thinking. What were the odds?
So, you know, you could tell, like, the story, and sprinkled out through the whole story, there's just these breadcrumbs that God really kind of put in place. And so that's where, you know, we went out there on a football trip, ended up doing very good in the workout with them, and they ended up giving both of us a scholarship, basically.
Wow.
And then that's where the pro thing came in. We had all the NFL scouts coming and visiting me at Minnesota State. So big shout out to Minnesota State. The love that they showed us Western boys to be able to find a place and play, especially for me that year. I ended up getting a lot of awards in football at Minnesota State. But I give all the glory to God going through all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of like the introduction to pro sports after going to Minnesota State, where I had, you know, these stints in the NFL, stints in these different leagues to be able to kind of have those experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
So after you were done with, it was the Cowboys first and then the Jets?
Yes.
And so you're done with the Jets.
Yeah.
Do you have, and I asked Jamar Hill this because I know so many athletes, did you have the what now? You do come from a very faith-based background, so this might not have been your path, but what do I do now in a little depressive state? Because you only did football, or did you do other things as well and you didn't go through that?
Yeah, so the great thing about the NFL is they got this thing called the NFLPA. They've got resources for NFL players to kind of fall back on with career paths and really planning for the future. I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of these former players that were my teammates that were actually in office. So one of my teammates was in the NFL office in New York, where I connected to really kind of find out what is out after football. What kind of things can I get into? Well, they were able to connect me with these different programs to be able to kind of venture into those routes. And so I ended up going with the player. It's called the NFL Player Engagement. Mm-hmm. His name is Keith Elias. He's a good buddy of mine now. He oversees it. And I connected with that. And that's where they had people that had a really big network to really kind of connect former players in job opportunities or entrepreneur opportunities. And they really kind of coach them through that kind of stuff. So I really took part of those kind of things post-football. And then also I started my own nonprofit organization, really trying to give back to communities what I was given, and that's through sports, and really trying to do a lot of the coaching, kind of like the life mentorship through athletic movement.
So you're leading us right into what I want to talk about. Was your nonprofit?
Yeah, so the nonprofit is called Elite Athletic Trend, EAT, and our acronym is Time to Eat. And basically what it is like all the mentorship programs, all the innovative movement programs to get people active. You know, it teaches a lot of leadership skills and those kind of things. And when I was on the football field, whenever it got hard, it was time to eat. Like, it's time to get work.
Yeah.
It's time to, pick up the lunch pail and it's time to eat. And that's basically what we did with the nonprofit organization. We started with the small school. It's called Eastern Hancock Educational System, and we only had about 40 kids that joined it. And we ended up developing those 40 kids prior to the football season, and we just took them through athletic movements and those kind of things to really prepare them, not only physically but mentally. And so, a lot of the community was started to kind of pick up all the energy. And they were like, what is this new program? What is, we got a former NFL guy coming in our community and doing things with our community. Well, it really took off. So we went from 40 kids, and within 2 years, we expanded that to thousands of kids to where we're servicing, where, we had multiple educational systems where we were providing service to elementary kids, middle school kids, and high school kids.
Oh, wow.
And so we were rolling. I mean, we were just killing. I had about 6 coaches. One of the coaches actually was my nephew that got signed by the
the Ravens.
The Ravens. So a lot of those kids got to interact with him before he was a Raven. So a lot of them were like, yes, he got drafted, those kind of things. They were part of his journey, his story. But that nonprofit organization was just rolling, and then COVID.
Yeah. That stupid C word.
It's part of my journey.
Yeah, I know.
It's part of everybody's journey that went through it. And, that happened, and there was really those mandates that really kind of killed a lot of the opportunities to get the engagement out. What I mean by that is, there was mandates to social distance. And a lot of things that we did were face-to-face interaction, a lot of physical movements and those kind of things. And they started requiring folks wearing masks. And we were like, you can't really have kids in masks while we're doing these kind of movements, because you got to have oxygen when you're running and those kind of things. And it's not really safe. Anyway, so
you do the oxygen. I remember going to the gym. It was so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of things really kind of took an axe to a lot of the programming within the school systems, to where, I was starting to think about my own kids. I had 2 kids that live with their mom up here in Alaska, and at that time, they were struggling with school. And I also had family in Alaska, too, that was struggling as well. And so I was kind of in a place where, I had to pray to God, like, hey, do you want me to be with my own family, let my kids, and help them during this time that's unknown? Because let's face it, a lot of people, it was unknown. When I was living in Indiana, we actually had semi-trucks getting pulled over by looters.
Whoa.
And they were looting the semi-trucks because,
See, toilet paper or something?
Well, at that time, the lockdowns, they were locking down these stores.
Yeah.
And the only way you could travel is if you were an essential worker, right?
Oh, wow.
So if you didn't have those essential workers, you couldn't go to the stores. You couldn't buy the necessary things you need for your family. So, at that time, it was very uncertain times to where,
This is just a few years ago.
Right? People are just like looking past it. I mean, there's got to be some... there's just some things that we're kind of paying now, but that I believe that, in the school systems, the interactions, the face-to-face, like those kind of things. So anyway, at that time I was in that place where, I was in a place of finding direction, and that direction was to come back to Alaska and be helping my family, my kids, because the whole digital learning wasn't working for them.
It didn't work for many. And my kids are part of the COVID time also. And you almost wonder, because my oldest, the 14-year-old, he's called the COVID kid class, because this is when it happened. And now those COVID kids are going to high school next year. Yeah. And they're missing some information because they weren't in classes, Yeah,
so making that transition, I decided to make that transition, come to Alaska. Well, I kind of put my name out there, out in Alaska. I really kind of feel like what's out there for me as far as like what I could do for work. And that's where the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, picked it up. And they did.
So did you just apply? How does that happen?
Well, yeah, I saw it. I applied for it.
Okay.
It was a position to oversee the Operation Engage initiative. It's a national initiative, and there were, I believe, 20 cities that they targeted, just because of their rates of overdose, the rate of drug seizures. Those things were pretty high, and Anchorage was one of them.
Yeah, I believe it.
I mean, it still is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how all that stuff worked out when I got into the system and kind of learned all those things, but. they did their homework. It took about 4 or 5 months to actually get on board with them.
Wow.
But they saw what I did with my nonprofit, and they're like, this is the guy that we need to bridge health and public safety.
Yeah.
So public health and public safety, we need a guy who be able to reach different communities, diverse communities, all communities, to be able to kind of get our message out to kind of, reduce the amount of, drugs that are going around the city. Well, they offered me the job.
So is this the former government executive position?
No, this is this is before I got that position.
Okay, so. I'm like, you've done so much. I'm trying to follow on my notes. Okay, so you started with the DEA doing this initiative. And then what came next?
Well, we went through...
How long did you do that for a while?
So, it was... I did that so I got on board, I want to say about February, March. And then in October, I was forced out in October. When I say forced out, I mean, a lot of people can kind of relate that it was in that same position I was, to where an email was sent out.
Yeah.
And the email was like, hey, we need you to take this mandated COVID vaccine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And, for me, I'm a very healthy guy.
Yeah.
I stay active.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't feel like I had to take that shot. And, at the time, it was kind of like, what I got to do what's best for me and my family.
Yeah. I mean, when you're told to put something in your body, it's probably... I had another friend that was a teacher, and she quit. And
well, I felt very... for me, I felt sad because the people I was engaged with in government, you can tell they didn't want to take it.
Yeah.
But they were put in the position that they had to choose to provide for the family or do this, or, like leave.
Yeah.
And so, at that time, I had to make a decision for myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. But God would provide the next opportunity. Well, it happens, I got involved with a lot of folks that are in government to be able to kind of do that work. And my name somehow got to the mayor's office, and, I put in for that position, and got provided a way to be able to get in a position in government as an executive. And that's where that position came open. I had to leave my position in the DEA because I didn't want to get poked,
Yeah. To go to
So I ended up working for the Republican mayor at the time. Mayor Bronson is his name. And at that time, it was there was a lot of tension in the political world.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
I know.
I was going to say, you understand there was a lot of tension.
So just let our listeners know, my family owns a restaurant. We were actually, my dad was really great friends with Bronson. And he was actually at my dad's service a couple weekends ago. And we were not closing because my dad and my mom couldn't afford to. If we close, we have no money coming in, but we still have all these groceries. It was basically life or death financially. So we got to know the administrators very well and came out way better on the other side, but that's my story. So I want to continue with yours.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is that we lived during that lifetime where, your father and other individuals in the community were kind of like demonized during those time. And,
I mean, my dad was very much demonized. And I have Google alerts and I had to wake up every morning seeing what they're saying about my dad all across. Yeah. We're talking even into the national news networks. And so, it was a hard time.
Look at the stuff that's coming up now that is coming out as far as like the studies and those kind of things and people that were suppressed with new information.
Yeah.
That kind of put new light out there for people. So, I mean, it was when I was getting in office, like you mentioned, the Bronson administration, it was very intense. I mean, I was getting into something to where, people were saying he was racist. He was a mass killer or things like that because, he wouldn't put down the mandates, kind of like some some of these other folks that would.
Yeah.
But my experience coming in that position, it was a blessing to be able to kind of go in there and serve in my capacity in government. Obviously there was I'm not either party affiliation. I haven't been a Republican or a Democrat as far as affiliated with one or the other, but definitely there's times when either side is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like
I'm very open-minded myself.
yeah, so, getting into this position, it made me the highest ranked Samoan-born government official in Alaska state's history. So there was no other Samoan-born government official that served in that type of capacity in executive branch. And so, for me, it was very honorable to be able to represent my people, the Samoan people, in that capacity, but also the work that I was able to do and accomplish as a government official. During that time as well, as soon as I got in office, you may have remembered this, but there was a big, huge volcano tsunami that hit Tonga Islands.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it was like the largest impact that they recorded undersea that exploded.
Yeah.
There's a big population of Polynesians that live here.
Right.
And so as the government official that served in office, I was named the chief equity officer. I connected with all the groups, the different organizations to make sure that my door was always open whenever they needed. Well, they reached out to me, and the Tongans, it's the Tongans, they reached out to me. He's like, we can't function in this city. We can't go to work. We can't. Our family over there are being drowned out by the tsunami. Their crops are being destroyed by the water, and people are starving. We have to do something. And at that time, everyone's like, it's lockdown.
Yeah. But you need to do it. Yeah. You need to save
it was
them.
lockdown. Everyone's like, no, you need to stay within your, we need to put the mask on 6 feet away.
Sanitize everywhere. We can't find toilet paper.
Right? What is it now? It's eggs, So anyways, at that time, I was serving at a limited capacity because they didn't confirm me yet, because they're really kind of, when I say they, I'm talking about there's a executive legislative branch, and they both had to work together to confirm people. My position was one of those positions to get confirmed by that branch. Well, they didn't confirm me for almost 5 months.
Holy cow.
So, I did a lot of work in that 5 months.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wasn't worried about either side. I was worried about the people that I was representing and helping out. Well, the Tongans came to me, which was a very interesting story in itself, because Samoans and Tongans have a rich history of war.
Oh.
And so there's when you get individuals that are kind of like groups that are Samoans and Tongans, there's a natural history where we're both aware,
You can't see him, guys, but he's giving the eye, we know, you know.
Yeah, we're looking at each other yeah. So, that itself, I believe, is a God thing too, because, God used someone like myself, Samoan, to be able to help the Tongan community. Well, they came and they said we couldn't do all those. We couldn't work. We couldn't function. We would love to get help because we want to help our family. They're struggling. We were born there. And there's big population here. I think there's over 10,000, 11,000 across the state. There's over 40,000 Polys, which is Polynesians.
Wow.
So it's a huge amount of folks that are here in Alaska, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
Alaska.
Yeah. Why'd you pick Alaska? Why did I pick Alaska?
So I was grateful enough to work in Brunson's office to be able to do this stuff with folks that were around me. So Portia Noble, Terrence, that were part of the team with me that were able to kind of focus on helping these folks. Well, we ended up, me and Terrence, we ended up getting on a phone call with some of the military folks to see if we can get a military ship. If we were to be able to raise, funds or get a lot of rice or things, see if we can get a ship out to Tonga. And we got a phone call. I'm not going to mention who the individual is, just to make sure that we're protecting the folks. But we got in contact with folks in the military, and the response was, due to COVID, we cannot be part of that.
Oh, my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's like it keeps coming back.
Yeah. So we're sitting there like, what?
Roadblock.
Yeah, I'm still pissed off at COVID because it killed the combination pizza at Costco. It never came back. So
gosh, you're right. You are so right on that. Costco pizza. Well, that's it. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah, right. And I met some of the Costco folks in the executive branch there, and man, we got to bring the combination pizza back. COVID's,
who didn't want it? Like,
I don't know.
Take away the pepperoni and give us the combo. Sidetrack. Sorry.
So no worries. So we got that feedback, and obviously it was disheartening. We wanted to help the folks, and through our connections, we were able to, which Lucy Hansen, she's the Polynesian Association organization president right now, played a big role in getting folks together outside of the government office. We were able to get Matson, Matson Ship Company is?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure Dylan.
Yeah, my brother's a Teamster, and my sister-in-law is a Teamster.
Dylan that's at Matson?
I don't know the people.
So Dylan is an amazing individual, great person to work with at Matson. So what we did is I ended up calling these different folks, and I was like, hey, Matson has a lot of Polynesians that work at.
Yeah, seriously. You want to help?
I was like, hey, are you guys willing to, kind of help the folks that are in your organization, their family struggling in Tonga? Yeah. And he's like, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh.
What do we need to do? Sign us up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, great. So we got Matson on board,
How do you get it over there? By sea.
So Matson, they're shipping containers.
Yeah.
They actually make a stop in Hawaii, and then they were going to make a stop to Tonga.
No way.
Just for that reason. And so Matson, big shout out to Matson, Dylan Farber, awesome, amazing person. I hope you run that organization. But the world needs to know that he played a major role to be able to get 3 containers full of essential goods. We're talking about foods, medical supplies. We're talking about blankets. We're talking about all those 3 containers full, over 150,000 pounds worth of goods.
Wow. Well, you're thinking Matson, and I'm going to thank you for doing your part in that. I mean, you are serving. There is that bigger purpose in life, and that is insanely amazing.
Well, I'm just the vessel, just your average Joe, just being used as a vessel.
But the vessel, that's just the key word there. You have to have a vessel to run that, and that's amazing that you were able to help.
Well, the story doesn't end there, so I'm
ready for more. Keep going.
So, I started contacting different mayors, whether they're Republican, Democrat, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So I contacted Fairbanks, I contacted Juneau, contacted all these different mayors. Absolutely, what can we do? How can we get the message out?
Oh, wow.
So each of those communities, we even had Barrow all the way top of Alaska. So they ended up getting their communities together, and all of them had their stuff to send us. And they're like, how can we get it to you? Well, we end up calling Alaska Airlines.
Oh, wow.
So Alaska Airlines, big shout out to Alaska Airlines. Big love to you.
Yeah.
You guys did an amazing job helping us with that initiative. But so Alaska Airlines committed to flying every single goods from every single city to Anchorage.
They went and picked it all and brought it to Anchorage.
100%.
Wow.
Well, the folks had to drop it off at the airport, but they were willing to pack it and send it here.
Yeah.
And then, it was a huge community effort. So when they got here, there was moving companies that also were part of it as well, that used their own stuff for free to be able to bring and package everything and then put it on the semis provided by Matson. So there's a video out there. So
is there really?
Yeah, I'll send you the video.
I'll post it up on our.
I was gonna say, if you wanted to post it.
You're gonna. We're recording in early March, the March 24th drop. So
okay, awesome.
We'll get it up on their Discover with Lucy Facebook page or Instagram.
Yeah, so I'll get you the video.
Get that. Yeah,
and it's an amazing video that really captures everything within like 2 minutes.
Oh wow!
So you'll see exactly like all the hands that put a part of it, the churches that were part of it. They stored all the grains, all the rice, all the pillows. Walmart donated 200 plus blankets.
Wow. So okay, the people that came to you, what are they thinking? Like, wow, he like did it.
So listen to this. Okay, you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
So we get this initiative kicked off. This is all, and we had a huge ceremony. Governor's office is part of it.
Yeah.
Stanley, he was part of the governor's office at the time. Big shout out to Stanley. He amazing individual. He's been in office and that kind of stuff. We had a big, huge community gathering. Tons of folks showed up. You'll see in the video where we kind of prayed over the goods and that kind of stuff and then sent it out. Well, now it was my confirmation.
The what?
Confirmation.
Now 5 months later.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You already did all of this amazing work.
Yeah, so think about it. Like,
the
confirmation is coming, and both sides are fighting each other. So the assembly and the mayor, there's back and forth fighting, that kind of stuff.
At this point.
Yeah, and obviously he named me that position, so there's natural kind of friction. So my confirmation comes up. And now everyone's like, oh, snap. Like, this is going to get real juicy. Like, because I'd still have to get approved.
Yeah.
And it was unknown whether they were going to approve me. And there was, I believe at the time, there was 12 assembly members. And they had to have a majority to be able to approve me.
Right.
Which I think there was only 2 Republicans and the rest are all Democrats.
Okay.
So it wasn't in my favor as far as, like, you're looking at the party-wise.
Yeah.
Because
you're working for Bronson at the time?
Yes.
Because he's a Republican. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, there was Jamie Allard, Crystal Kennedy, 2 of the 2 folks that really were supportive. And big shout out to them. Much love to those guys. Cause
they do a lot of work.
When it came to my confirmation, they were big supporters in the things that I was doing for people. Not particularly for party, but just for people. Much love to those individuals to be able to kind of show their outspoken support for my confirmation.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the confirmation came, and my name is on the agenda. And everybody's like, that's the one that's going to be,
like the one to hear.
Yeah, because prior to me getting in, the previous administration had put somebody in my place already, and there's a 5-year, 4-year contract where that person's supposed to stay in, and there's a clause that they can't fire that guy unless they get approval from the assembly.
Oh my gosh! Now you have 2 hoops, giant hoops.
So the mayor at that time ended up, releasing the previous administration's guy that was already in place.
Yeah.
Well, in the clause, they said they had to get approval from the assembly. So obviously there was a big
You were down at the library a lot. That's where the assembly meetings are.
Yeah. So, I'm coming in as a guy that's not their guy, which is fine, and we get to the assembly chambers and it was standing room only.
Oh, wow.
Folks from every single background.
Yeah.
And the work that I've done to be able to kind of get there showed up.
Whoa. Like in support. Like
they showed up.
Wow.
So it was standing room only. And
well, how much you have done already, I can only imagine.
Oh,
yeah.
it was intense. I mean, it was.
Okay, so keep going. Now I'm on pins and needles, and I have goosebumps again. Keep going.
Yeah, you can go look it up. Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you can go see the video, all that kind of stuff. There's a picture out there. I think I posted the picture as well, but it was standing room only, and it was delayed. It was delayed hour, delayed 2 hours. It was delayed, and finally someone was like...
They were really good at that this time, delaying.
Oh, people were getting kind of like angry because they're standing.
Oh, I know,
They're like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like...
They're getting hot, probably.
I believe it was Jamie. I believe it was Jamie Allard. She was like, hey, we need to get to this.
I could see her doing that.
Anyway, so I forgot the process of how it went, but they ended up getting me up. They moved my agenda up because it was getting rowdy in there.
Really?
It was getting loud. Yeah, the people were getting upset because they understood, like, all right, we're just standing here for hours and hours and hours. We're not doing this.
Yeah. Oh, oh my gosh! I never thought of that. Like they would say, we don't have time. Yeah, and just end the meeting. I could see that. Okay.
Yeah, so it was intense. It was real intense. And then I think one of the assembly members was like, "All right, let's put this up there." Everybody started cheering. Everybody was like, and then they finally put me up in the stand, and they put me on the stand to answer all these different questions and that kind of stuff. And I believe one of the questions was like, "Hey, why do you think you're qualified?" Those kind of things. And I mentioned how I work with the NFLPA players. Then I mentioned that I work with different communities, with the DEA, to be able to do these things. And then there was another thing that I mentioned, which I didn't tell you, is when I was in college, I was actually going to get kicked out of college, right? So college, your freshman year, you're
like
feeling
having
good,
a fun time.
You're like, I can get a little, So at that time, I was actually on academic probation, and I was actually going to get kicked out of school, actually, probably that quarter that I got that message. And it was very tough because I had to play football, and then I also had to juggle life.
Yeah.
Then I also had to juggle workouts, and then I also had to juggle rest.
I ask these UAA players all the time because I work with them a lot. I ask them all the time, and the travel and all that kind of stuff. How do you do it all? That must have been that's so horrible.
Well, now they're paying athletes now.
Now,
so, back then I didn't get paid.
Yeah, dang it, you were a little late.
I think they're supposed to happen the way it is, but I didn't get paid the way all these athletes are getting paid now to be able to use their likeness and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Transfer portals, those kind of things. It's like, man, it would have been nice back then.
I know, yeah, because I'm the voice of the Pilots baseball team for the summer, and they have the portal, and these kids get put into the portal. That's how Jamar Hill was in the portal, and that's how he was drafted.
Yeah, and thank God probably for it not happening during my time, because now kids coming to high school have to compete.
Yeah.
With that type of talent now.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot tougher.
Yeah.
And what it did too was it all the individuals that were part of the COVID or whatever, it put them 2 to 1 year behind because they weren't recruiting folks.
Right.
So it was.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So it was.
Then they got that extra year, right? Wasn't it the
so
extra
there were
year?
seniors that were there for like 7 years.
They're like 27 years old as a senior.
Yeah. I mean, if I would have took it too. Another year to get stronger, bigger, and faster. Especially in the NFL. I mean, you're talking about freaks.
Ooh,
when I say freaks, I mean I play with guys who are like 6'7", like 18% body fat, and over 350 pounds.
Wow.
Run like a deer.
Holy, sounds so scary.
Like aliens, right?
Yeah.
So
you were out there.
Yeah, you just don't see that every day.
No.
But I was able to see that every single day. I mean, I seen a guy, he was able to jump over 45 inches.
Whoa.
Yeah. 45 inches, like, just be able to jump over people.
I'm 60 inches.
Right? And he was just standing there. So imagine if he was running and jumping.
He would jump.
So we're talking about just the highest level of athletes that you can think of, all shapes and sizes in the NFL, which is that's why I believe football is a great sport. Sorry, hockey.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, basketball. Sorry, but I'm not sorry because I mean it's a wide range of body size, body mechanics, the skill involved in those kind of things, and also the team aspect to it is amazing. I mean, football teaches a lot. I'm sure you experienced that with your kids, how important that kind of thing is with like team atmosphere, and how it really grows young men and women into leaders in today's society.
That's why I'm in sports. First and foremost, that's it. Is to keep them out of trouble, hopefully. I don't know. Keep them busy, keep them off the video games, keep them off their devices, things that we didn't have as kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine you having a device when you were going through your tough time there in Palmer?
Oh, my goodness.
Or in the Valley?
I mean, I wouldn't have been mowing lawns, I tell you that.
Yeah. So, you're in your confirmation.
So I'm in my confirmation, and they're asking me what qualifies you as a chief equity officer, that kind of stuff. And I told them a story in college. So I was going to get kicked out of college, right? And at that time, my counselor, his name is Tom Narini, introduced me to a guy, and his name was Duchigadu. He was the chief equity officer of the school. And so on behalf of me, after meeting me and learning more about me, he advocated to keep me in school because I had other qualities besides what was on paper to be able to graduate.
Wow. That's insane. That does not happen. That does not happen. That does not happen.
Yeah, so the chief equity officer recognized that had qualities of my culture, which is, Samoan, and then qualities of leadership and sports that would propel me to graduate. And he had to convince executives in the school that I have qualities outside of the educational institution that will qualify me.
That's crazy.
So the chief equity officer then.
So, okay, there's a good example in front of the assembly. So you tell them this whole story.
Yeah, so I tell them that whole story, and they're just like shaking their head. They're shaking their head. And this is actually online. You can go look it up on YouTube. It got down to where one of the assembly members was like, all right, so we heard your story. How are you going to be able to work with the mayor and the assembly knowing that we don't get along? Because you work, basically you work for us, like both the assembly and the mayor, which is in the job description of that position. And the whole crowd was silent. And then I got in the mic and I was like, I don't work for the mayor. I don't work for the assembly. I turned around, pointed at the crowd. I work for them. And the whole crowd went crazy.
Oh, snap. Mic drop.
Yeah, the mic, and it was a lot of cheering, a lot of screaming.
Yeah.
The person chairing the assembly at the time was gabbling.
Oh, I'm
just
sure, yeah.
Quiet down, quiet down. We need order. We need order.
Yeah.
Everyone's going crazy, and then they took a little recess break after that.
Oh, they couldn't handle that.
They took a recess break because it was getting nuts inside there.
Oh, that's
people were just cheering. There was
that's amazing.
I'm not a government official. I'm not
So when they take recess, do you just sit up there and wait for them to come back?
Well, I just turn around. Everyone came able to shake my hand. I'm like, hey guys, wait, we haven't made it yet.
Yeah. Hold on.
So I was just shaking hands with everybody, and then they came back and they finally got together and they're like, we need to take a vote.
Yeah.
And then when they were taking a vote, they actually asked I believe the HR manager at the time wanted to bring individuals, which is Nikki Chibaka. You know who that is?
Yeah.
So Nikki, great friend of mine. Big shout out to him. Where they brought up individuals. Actually, Mayor Bronson did. Where he brought up the Tongan community.
Yeah.
And he brought up the Korean community, brought the Samoans. All these different communities within Anchorage that vouched on behalf of me.
How could they say no? Yeah. So they say yes?
Yeah. So they voted, and one by one, it turned green.
No one said no.
It was unanimous.
Good.
Unanimous vote.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing.
So that's how my, transition into that happened.
Yeah. So you're now in. What's next?
Yeah. So after I got in, I started to get involved in different communities and how we can kind of open and have access to government resources. And so one of the things that we were kind of looking at is employment was down.
Yeah.
I mean, not only in government, across. I mean, you guys know.
Oh, we were, still are affected by it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I got in, that was one of the main things is how can we give access to communities to the workforce? And so I work with the educational system. You heard the academies, Anchorage academies.
Yeah.
So I was played a vital role in that in the government to be able to kind of introduce that into the city of Anchorage, being the first program to get kids involved in the workforce at a young age.
Oh, nice.
And so I got that involved with the educational system and the city to where we started having informational job gatherings around the city where different schools will come and learn about the city jobs.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't just include city jobs. I included other jobs outside of the city.
Yeah.
So I invited everybody to come, and we had it at the Nina Center. We had it at the Sullivan Center. We had it at different locations throughout the whole city so that we gave access to these different educational systems for kids to be part of it. I mean, if you really want to plan the future, you got to plan for the youth to be able to get involved. So I got the academies with the ASD, with the administration to really kind of prep for the future to get them involved at a young age.
Yeah.
So the academies, they, with the city, we were working on a program to be able to kind of get them credit for the work that they did in the city. I'm not sure what they're doing now, but when I was in, we help assist in getting these educational systems involved with the workforce. Other things that I did in the workforce too was be able to have all these different presentations at these different communities. So Mount View, Southside, Fairview, Jewel Lake. We had these different job fairs held there. Because I know when I was growing up, I had to drive to go to a job fair, those things, kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, now we brought it to the different communities.
That's amazing.
So we went to these different communities, and you saw the numbers in the workforce in the city increase. The diversity of the city increased too. And that's just because we got to give more access to people, individuals to know what's out there.
It's true.
So I started doing that for the city. And then also in the city, the same thing that chief equity officer did for me in college, I implemented in the city.
Wow.
So in the city now, you're able to kind of include, kind of like these different experiences, whether you work for a nonprofit or if you worked at like a cultural a position. So like if you're like a whaler and you're used as a leadership role to lead that team, well, that leadership experience can be translated into the workforce as leadership experience.
Wow.
So cultural experience you can use as a leadership experience in the workforce.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can go in the city now and look, that's in there. That's in the thing where you can include your cultural experience. Because here's the thing is
because it should be.
Well, thousands of years of leadership.
You're the one that knows it. Yeah. You're living it.
So there's different experiences that really didn't translate into the workforce as far as leadership. And that's what I did was I was able to kind of get those leadership components included in the hiring and promoting. What are these other qualities of leadership that we can include in the workforce that can translate without, stepping on the U.S. Constitution or things like that?
Right.
So those are the kind of things that I did as far as like when I got into position, and it worked.
Right.
I mean, you look at the charts that I was in charge of; they were going up.
That's amazing. So this is what 23. 2023? Yeah,
2021 is when I got on board with the mayor, and then I just resigned in 2024.
Oh, okay.
So just before I left to Samoa.
Wow.
So September. And that's where I got into the entrepreneur with Junior's Elite Trends, LLC consulting, where I mentor and I consult organizations with the executive leadership that I was able to kind of garnered in the last few years, and then also as a pro athlete, it's been very rewarding. Since leaving government, I ended up getting 4 awards. I got recognized by the country of Samoa.
Wow.
So the country of Samoa, the governor gave me a distinguished guest award for being in a country representing Samoans out there in the world. So he gave me one of those.
Huge.
And then I got an award, Meritorious Award from the Alaska Native Brotherhood, which is the oldest civil rights organization in the world.
Wow.
And then I got an award from the Polynesian Association of Alaska, an executive award representing Polynesians, and then another award by Ford NGL, which is an executive leadership award for education.
And you're still young, so there might have been a purpose for you to be here on the earth.
I believe that's a
you can't
that plays a role, And a lot of things, like my journey could have been a lot different.
I was thinking of you in all the red walking down the sidewalk, and that is a huge transition. You know what I mean? It really is, because I had a friend, my best friend back in the day joined a gang. And that was just on the west side of town here, over in the Turnagain area.
Yeah.
So back then, and is this the 90s?
Yeah.
It was serious. I mean, I don't really know anything now, but thankfully. But it was to go from that to where you are today, which you own your own consulting company.
Yes.
And so as you're talking and as I'm thinking, I see it as like a path, and you've picked up every stone along, and you're now using every single stone in you're now with that purpose spreading a whole bunch of goodness. So that's absolutely amazing. Now you know why I wanted you on the podcast, because our listeners are going to hear all this and they're going to think, how would he get into the NFL? And how would he come out of the NFL in such a positive light? Because we see a lot of athletes that come back and they don't know what to do. They don't, and you really stuck yourself in there by going, you kind of like helped that as well. Helped those people, and so what an amazing journey.
Yeah, it's crazy because, the people that come across, the words that they said, really kind of encouraged me to really kind of change that path.
Yeah.
And, get into the consulting. That's really what it is. And when you're engaging with folks, how do you engage with folks? You use your words and how you treat people. All those things matter. I mean, there's a study, I think it's Dr. Komodo or something like that, where he did a study of rice.
Yeah.
Like there's 3 containers of rice, and for 1 month he had one rice. Actually, all of them were filled with water, and then there was rice in it. One water, he said thank you, that was rice in it, and then the middle one, he says you're an idiot, and then the last container, the third one, he completely ignored.
Okay.
And after the month study, him speaking to those different container beakers of rice and water, the one that he said thank you actually fermented.
That's insane.
And then the one in the middle that he was calling idiot, it was turning black.
Wow.
And then the last beaker, it was rotting. The one he completely ignored, didn't say nothing to it.
That kind of shows you what's happening inside our heads and what we're putting out there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when I was a kid, when I was at a young age, a coach was able to kind of do that for me.
Yeah. And then just to watch your nephew and niece or nephews.
Yeah, my nephews.
Your nephews, and then him to be drafted. It's just, wow, what a story, Junior.
Yeah, so
that's insane.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to the podcast, and if you're listening, like if you take anything out of this, it's like at a young age you have so much power to change, not just one person, but many people's future in what you say and how you treat people, and that's kind of like my journey.
Yeah.
Is when people at a young age invested and really kind of built me up to where I'm at now, it really changed not just my life, but those that are around me. And then I try to be like those folks.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm excited to have my kids listen to this as well, because that is exactly what it is when we're younger, we just think the world's out to get us with the homework and the schools and the dramas. But really, what is life really about? And I like getting down to the bottom of that with obviously being a person of faith myself.
Yeah.
And that what is life really about? And you're showing a perfect example of what is life really about. So
just a little insider for those that are listening, there is a movie being created about this.
No way.
And it's called Miracle Warrior.
Miracle Warrior?
Yes.
And who's creating it?
So it's Vance Sensabaugh.
Is it a local?
No.
Okay.
This individual, I met his friend through the DEA.
Oh, wow.
And my buddy in the DEA was best friends with him in elementary.
Oh,
so he's a movie producer, and he's already got movies out already.
Yeah.
And when he told him about my story, he connected with me and was like, this is a movie.
Yeah, it is, though. Because the inspirational factor.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, you always want to inspire others, and you're doing it with, I would say without trying, because you're just living your life.
Yeah.
And you're just doing what you would do anyways. But
I'm just your average Joe. Like I always say, I'm just your average Joe being used as a vessel. And hopefully people can kind of see Jesus in it.
Yeah. Well, I hope you, those listening, see yourself as a vessel as well, and know that there is so much good to be done out of tragic stories, out of happy stories, out of any kind of stories. There's so much to be done. And when you take a place like you did, Junior, and so many lives, and you're still going to this day, and with a consulting company, you're just going to do more and more. So, wow, what a full circle. And I'll watch the movie. Is there like a release date? Is there like we just got started?
So we've finished the script.
Oh, wow.
That took about 2 years.
Yeah.
So the script is completed.
Wow.
And we're looking to film this year. They just finished their project in Cambodia with the king out there. And that's being released.
Jeez,
with
just a little movie then.
Yeah. And so they're looking to start shooting later on this year and probably release at the end of the year or beginning of next year.
Well, can we have you back on once that is?
100%. So.
Oh, good. Wow, Junior, that is amazing. I love all the different aspects. So thank you so much for sharing your story
Absolutely.
with us.
Thank you for having me, Lucy.
Yes, of course.